Hey everyone, happy Thursday or Friday, depending on where you are in the world. I am so excited to be here today. So I do a lot of lives. If you follow me, you see that I partner up with all different women, a very wide range, because I want to make sure that we are getting education in all different areas because it affects, and it always comes down to it affects our wealth, and it affects, how we're building our wealth, what we can do in our lives. And so I was able to connect on LinkedIn because I love LinkedIn. If y'all aren't on LinkedIn, you're missing out because there are a lot of connections out there and you can meet people from all over the world. And this is why I said, depending on where you are in the world, it could be Friday because I am joined with the amazing Gree. So you're in Australia, and what time is
Yep.
it? It's 7 a.m.
It, it's 7 a.m. I'm in Perth, Western Australia. So, yeah.
Okay, and it is 6 p.m. here in the United States where I am. I'm in St. Louis, and so I'm just so excited because I want everyone to know who you are, what you do, and how you're changing things for women in tech. Because I have a little soft spot for women in tech, because the gender pay gap is a thing, especially with women in tech, and also we need more women representing in that field. And so when you and I connected on LinkedIn, I was like, okay, we're gonna chat, and we chatted, and we are going to do this live, and we're going to talk about women in tech and wealth and all the things. So please, would you introduce yourself, tell my audience who you are, what you do, and all the things?
All the things. That
All
might be
the
a little bit too
things.
much for most people. so, so, so my name is Gree. I am Norwegian, but I've lived in Australia for since 1996. So most of my life, almost, at least my adult life. I have lived a relatively nomadic life before I moved here. I grew up all over Norway, and then at 13 moved to Botswana in Africa for 2 years, and then I studied in the UK. So I've worked. I think I've worked and lived on all continents except Antarctica. So that is my that's on my
Wow.
bucket list, if you like. But I've worked in tech. I ended up doing after looking at being a teacher and a doctor and a carpenter and a hairdresser, all sorts of different things. I decided to study computation, it was called in those days, 1980s, in the UK, because I had this epiphany for whatever reason, I don't know why, that technology would eventually underpin everything, so I could actually do good in all the different areas that I was interested in. Little did I know in those days that there was something called neurospicy. I thought it was perfectly normal. I still think I am, by the way.
You are.
so so and I think it's absolutely possible to have to thrive and have a wonderful life with a brain that works slightly different to the expectations of society around you. And so I'm always celebrating differences, but I've worked in tech for since the late 80s, primarily in software companies and in global software companies. I've met some wonderful people. I've developed some wonderful software. I started out as a programmer and realized I was much more interested in people and the problems we can solve than actually the technology. So I moved more into business analysis and eventually what's called product management, which sits firmly between business, customer, and technology. So that's kind of my happy space. I didn't know there was something called that, but that's what I was doing for all those years, working with a lot of organizations to get the most out of technology. And then all the time, but a few years ago, I was just so frustrated at trying to hire for diversity, trying to get more women in, because I firmly believe we need to have tech creators that are representative of the people that we are solving problems for, or the community that we serve. And we're saying that there's 25% women in tech, but in the tech creation and innovation, there is a lot lower. And we see, at least in our parts of the world, the number of women that come through university doing tech-related or IT-related subjects is lower. So I've set out on this journey to inspire more women to step into technology and thrive in technology, if you like. And I've been involved with larger organization advocacy groups to do that, but also started my own IT Girls Rock, or IT Girls Rock. I like IT Girls because it was used at the turn of the previous century, the early 1900s, for women or girls who were across everything and were trend setting and had all the latest fashion, but they were also doing good. So I've adopted and adapted that for my team. So it's a little bit of a misnomer, because IT girls are actually girls of all vintages, right, including my own. But we're there to. Yeah, we're basically trying to support, and it's a coaching, mentoring community, if you like, for women who are IT savvy or IT curious, that are seeking meaningful connection and support in their career and life. Because let's face it, women have to juggle so many different things, not just in the work life, but at home and in the community. So I always say across care, community, and career. So that's what we're trying to do. That was a long thing. I can dive into some of the details, but long introduction. Sorry, but we're here to celebrate differences and advance women in tech.
No, it's okay. I want to have everybody understand exactly what you do, and I love hearing the background of people in my audience. I know loves that as well. So, when you are working in the tech space with women, and cultivating that culture and really empowering women to move into that space, how are you doing that for them? What exactly are you doing to help the industry grow?
That's a good question. So it has to be a multi-pronged approach, if you like. So we work both directly with women to help to see. One of my pet peeves is when women say, "Oh, I'm not techy enough," or "I don't really know tech," and I'm going, "Well, let me challenge that. Let me prove to you that you know exactly as much tech as you need for your role." So we work with them. We also work on trying to make sure that the transferable skills across industries can be brought in, because let's face it, tech creation is not just about programming. It's about so much more. It's about the understanding the customer, the user, understanding the problem. One of my favorite quotes, which doesn't have so much to do with women. And I work with other I'm all about bringing all the underrepresented people into the space, but let's start with women. There is pretty much a 50-50 balance there, but I also recognize all genders and like non-binary as well. So it's not that. It's just, for me, it makes sense to start with women, if you like. But now I've taken myself off on a tangent. That's very typical. Anybody who knows me will do that.
Okay.
But we're looking at all these different roles that are part of tech, and then we're taking in helping women see what skills they've got to do it. And I like to call it, the skills of the future, which I see right now is really the so-called soft skills, which I like to call feminine strengths. And feminine strengths can be held by men and women, and it's interesting. So things like communication, collaboration, and things like that, when a man exhibits them, they are seen as real great leadership and communication strengths. But when a woman has them, she's a weak leader sometimes. It's not like that. I'm just realized that I'm live and I'm saying all these things. I can't edit this afterwards.
Hey,
Whoop.
we are
So
disruptors. It's fine. Like we're disruptors, so
yeah. But so we work with the women. We work with the women to build skills, to build connection, to help each other. We've also just inside It Girls Rock launched a mentoring program that is. I don't quite know what to call it, mentoring on demand, but we're trying to do it quite uniquely in terms of I say that you need a mentor for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and we actually help you find those mentors, because not everybody is fortunate to work in an organization that has mentors or get accepted into those firmer programs. So we're doing an intake now just so that we can source the right mentors for that group of people. And we're not teaching tech skills, but we can direct women to the tech skills that they want to enhance on. But it's really more about positioning themselves. So we have what I call the Dream Compass, which is the coaching and mentoring framework, which takes you then from your dreams and aspirations to designing a career that is aligned with that, so that you can align all where you're going in your life and career with what's at your core, what your purpose is, and finding your voice, and unlocking your strengths, your own unique strengths, and seeing them as value in the space. So that's what we do with the women. Then we do advocacy, and some of the projects that I work on is more on the trying to help organizations see how they can how they can attract and retain women and develop women, and actually get them up promotable and have them thrive in the organizations. So I'm huge on belonging. We talk about DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, but for me, it's all around belonging. So, and that's I use a definition by now I can't remember both the names, Liz Fosley and Molly Duffy, I think her surname is, and they say that diversity is having a seat at the table, inclusion is having a voice, and belonging is having your voice heard. And that is something that is often difficult, specifically if you're somebody from a diverse background, if you're a migrant, if you're neurospicy, if you've got a disability, if you're not the right age group, all those kind of things. So that's it. So that's working with organizations like that. And the last leg that I'm working on at the moment is really taking on board projects and getting together a band of women, a team of women, to actually run the projects, the tech projects. We're specifically focusing on data, AI, and integration, so getting the systems to work together. So that's the next thing that's coming up soon, and I'm working with a few foundation partners and collaboration partners on that. So that how that would work is that we'll have the more seasoned or experienced women running the project under my watch, and then we will pair them with if you could call them apprentices, so that they can learn on the job. So yeah,
I love
passing it forward.
Yeah. Okay, you just dropped so many gems, so many things that I hear women talk about, especially in the tech industry, not having the mentorship, not feeling like their voice is being heard, not knowing a clear career path, because there hasn't been a lot of women in tech. So who are you supposed to go to? And if you're hired on to these companies where you could be in office and there's only a few women that are there, and you're supposed to talk to Joe over there about your career path when he has no idea what it feels like to be in a room where you're the only one there as a woman in tech. So I love that. And I also love that you talked about belonging. That is huge. And I hope that the people that watch this either on the replay or it's live right now, if they're watching, think about how that's presented. You want to belong, and you should be able to belong. So I really love that. The reason that this is so important and what you're doing is so important is because you and I chatted about, the wealth and women, creating wealth for themselves. And if they don't have these resources and they're in tech, or they might decide not even to get into tech because they are intimidated or they hear from society that, yeah, like you said, we're not techie enough. If you don't have these resources, then they're not going to get into tech, which you can build something for yourself if you have the right guidance. I mean, the income is there, the wealth is there, but so do you see that a lot where women just say, hey, I don't want to advocate for myself, or I don't know where to go because I don't have that blueprint or whatever that looks like for my career? Do you see that a lot?
I don't think it's that they don't want to advocate for themselves. I don't think that is a thing that we have but it is that we have been conditioned to not boast, right? So that's one thing. We don't do that, and we still, I mean, certainly culturally for a Norwegian, you do not talk about the good stuff you've done, and I still sometimes when I hear people talk about, oh, look at this brilliant stuff I've done, I go, that's a bit much. But I think it's that they don't know how. I think it's not they don't know how, or they haven't got the right words and things. And specifically if English is not your first language, which is the case for a lot of women in the tech field. And you come as a migrant, you also, you have to find your circle, you have to find your people, and you often go with people that are like you, if you like, in the same background. So what I'm trying to do with It Girls Rock, it is global, and so we want to connect women all across the globe, but we do still have local chapters as well. But I want to just talk a little bit about a story about somebody that I mentored who is part of our community, and she was telling me like, oh, I've lost my voice. So she'd moved from a role where she was one of a group of people that were similar to her. Like, she really felt like she belonged into a new role. She'd studied to come into this new role, and in this, like, she's a young migrant woman in her 20s, and she moved into a role which was predominantly white men in their 40s and 50s. And she said, oh, I don't feel confident, I don't feel that I'm heard and things. So I gave her on our first meeting, I gave her a task. I said, listen, you get on quite well with your boss, don't you? And I said, why don't you ask him if you can sit in on the meetings and just learn while you're in the meetings? And she came and she did it the next day, right? And the boss said, of course, yeah, that's fantastic, you're showing initiative. And she came back and she said, you know what, they're all listening to me, I found my voice and things like that. So it's just about having that little nudge, it can be as little as a small conversation, right? And it's about with the right person, somebody who's walked in your shoes and being able to do that sort of stuff. So with our mentoring program, actually, it's a paid program, so you actually have to pay to be part of it, but we will also offer it through organizations. And I want to take one little sidestep. Joe, that you mentioned before, he could actually be a great mentor to women, but he needs support in doing that. So we also do programs where I can also do programs, I should say where I actually help mentor the mentor so that they have the tools in their toolbox to understand what it's like to mentor women that are slightly different. But I still think you need the community and be part of dropping into an organization, into a group where you go in and say, you know what, this happened at work today. I don't know how to deal with it, because you can't go to HR with it. You can't go to your boss with it, because you don't know if it's you or if it's them, and things like that. So that's why I think it's so important to have something on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And I've probably forgotten what I was going to say, but that's just me.
No, I appreciate it. And so when I say certain things, and I love how you came at it in a different way and a different way to think about it, because it's those little shifts that you just talked about. So like when I mentioned, oh, we're not advocating, it doesn't mean that we're not advocating. It's about the voice, and we lost our voice. And so look, and thinking of it that way, and looking at it that way, that could be a huge change. I mean, for me, I was like, oh yeah, that is how you say that. That is what we're doing. So, and I love how you're also partnering with other people in the tech community. So Joe, let's just talk about Joe, because we need them as well. And
Absolutely. It's not a problem with women, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The system. It's the system's problem, a patriarchy problem. Can I say that word? The patriarchy.
Oh, yeah. Well, we could get on a tangent about that, because tech and financial are hand in hand when it comes to that. So we could have that'll be another live that we do. But
Yep.
yeah, I love how you're working from within. You are giving resources from within to change the system, to change the way that women are being mentored, the resources that they're given, the companies themselves are being challenged for their thinking and the way that they treat women in tech. And I love also that you are empowering women from all over the world, because you talked about language barriers and other things. Tech is a worldwide industry, and to empower all of us is huge. So I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's not even a language issue, it's a communication issue. So cultural communication is different, so the way, there's nothing wrong with the English language.
No.
I mean, so there's a lot wrong with the English language, but it's a fascinating language because it's a living language that continually evolves and things. But we use the language differently in different cultures. So even between the UK, between the US and Australia, there's huge differences, right? And so I experienced that when I moved to Australia. So I'd lived in England, I'd studied in England, went back to Norway, came over here, and they sounded fairly English, but the culture was so different. So different. It's like, whoa, this is strange. And I didn't understand the hierarchy of authority, if you like. I didn't and of course, coming from a very egalitarian country like Norway, it's like, oh, so I mean, and I'm nowhere near the lower end at all. I'm very fortunate. I'm outspoken. I know who I am and things like that. Doesn't mean that I don't doubt myself most days. but suddenly I realized that I was like much further down on the pecking order but it took me 5 years to realize. So it called me a slow learner, right? To understand how things work.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, I appreciate you. This is why I wanted my audience to hear about you, to hear about the shaking things up in the tech world, because I love to align myself with other people that are shaking up their industries, shaking up the system, and what you're doing is so important. And like I said at the very beginning, it all meshes together with building wealth, and changing generations. And so I appreciate you coming on this live. And how can people work with you? So it doesn't, you work with women all over and companies all over the world. So how can people get in
Yeah.
touch with you?
And the best way is probably LinkedIn. So you are giving a big shout out to LinkedIn in there just to connect and do that. But you can check out the if you're interested in the It Girls Rock community, the URL is there on my face almost. Um, so that's probably the best way to get in contact. I've got links to a number of things on my LinkedIn profile, on my link tree per se. So there you go. And I do want to just a little bit of a shout back to you, because I love your tagline, "I'm not your father's advisor," and I think it's so important that we that we support women in understanding, I guess, financial education and how to build wealth and things like that. And on that note, I wanted to say that I don't just work with women who are already in the tech industry. I do work with women who want to get in there, non-tech women who want to develop technology and all that sort of stuff. So that's why I call it IT savvy and IT curious. But yeah, to your answer, I just had to sneak that in because I love the work that you're doing. It's just like, oh, look at that tagline, everybody. Look at that tagline.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. This is
No, no,
why
it's been
we
wonderful.
connected so well.
So
Yeah. So
no, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to the next one. We'll have to do maybe
yes.
coffee and cocktails or something like that.
Ooh. Oh yeah. We will definitely have to do that. Good idea. So everybody stay tuned and come with your coffee or cocktails to the live. So I appreciate you and I hope everybody has a great Thursday or Friday, wherever you are. And have a wonderful rest of your day. And we will see you soon.
Full. See ya.